second already. I think the fall season is full swing, I would say. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, I think, I saw the old Japanese film called Poppies. Poppies is the story is written by Soseki Natsume, and just because this is his first fiction, he wrote probably about 1905 to 1915 or something around that time, about 10 years. He wrote lots of very, very nice literature, fiction, and I read most of the Soseki's fictions by now, except this particular called Poppies. The Japanese title is Bubujin So. And so of course, I couldn't find any English translation. And so I looked and I found this internet site of Japanese literature, and so I went there and started to read this particular book, but it is more or less very difficult. I think just because Soseki wrote the first fiction, I think he was very concerned about how, his sentence, language structures and so forth. I think he used like an old style. It's not like at that time like a conversational Japanese styles or anything. It's just the old writing style. So it was, for me, it was very, very difficult to read. So finally I kind of gave up on that. I couldn't get any story out of it because it's so difficult to understand those expressions or whatever. And so I found this movie which was made 1935 by Kenji Mizoguchi. Kenji Mizoguchi is, as you know, he directed Ugetsu story. This is about a ghost story by Akinari Ueda. And it is something to do with, those family relationship, wars and all these things, poverty affected, and war especially affected the lives of those peasants, and so ended up with a very, very sad story. But that's Ugetsu, beautiful film, and he directed like a Sun Shows the Belief, and also some some I would say some prostitute life or something like that. But it was a beautifully made film that I really, really enjoyed. But this particular film, I didn't know that existed, and so luckily I saw in the YouTube. You can see in the YouTube a very old film, like 1935. So it's kind of the sound is not that good, and the picture quality wasn't that good. The black and white film, of course, and I enjoyed it because it depicts this story of the young people who are at that time probably very, very intellectual. They are talking about Shakespeare and all those Western culture, art and all these things. So they are very, very intellectual people. and but just because they are growing up in Japanese tradition, they have this value system. Oh, what about what you should be doing and what you are expected to do, and there's not much freedom there. There is a tremendously sad this story because of the young couple who loved each other couldn't consummate their relationship because the family relationship or expectation, all these things interfered with them, so they ended up with a kind of a tragedy at the end. So I think about this, so when Soseki wrote this particular story, I think about why he had to write that type of story. I think because people want that. I think people wanted to read that type of more or less like a suffering story due to social norm or pressures or whatever. And that's very, very common in Japanese fictions. I think every time they encounter the people stories at that time is mostly like you cry because of the so sad. Mother and child relationship was torn apart, and father or son or something like that. It's very, very strict. Therefore, you don't get the happiness that much. You wonder why my father was behaving like that, why my mother was crying like that. So those are tearjerker, right? It's very, very common worldwide. Especially, I would say, like in Japan, I think it's very, very common story development in the fictions and a poem or whatever it is. I think that people want that because people themselves, general public themselves, probably suffering of those things, and they get this catharsis feeling. If they cry for those stories, they feel pretty much, cleansed, or you temporarily, I would say, cried, and because of the crying, shedding your tears, I think you feel better. And I understand that tremendously, but that's more or less like a therapeutic effect in there. So this particular movie is like that. It's like you see somebody who are very, very rich family, for example, suffering from this love triangles, or you cannot just tell them that you like them, or you like her, or you like him. So it's without fail get into this particular situation where only tears come out from your eyes, and by doing so, by reading that type of stories, you are cleansed, I would say. But I don't think in the US, for example, I'm not sure how much those elements of the story existed. I can't find any example of it in the US, that type of story. British, I find them once in a while, like Thomas Hardy's story, like a Test of the Abermale, for example. Very, very sad story, and that particular story is the fate of this young woman who, who tried to, try to be happy with this boy she loved, but for circumstances, situations would not allow them to be together, and that ended up with tragedy also. Yeah, so I think it's very, very common that all over the world that type of story existed. French, I'm sure there is, Madame Bovary type of stories existing, and yeah. But US, I don't know which type of stories I can find of those a sad story. I think there are other, I don't know. When I first came to the US, I was amazed at how big the country is, and therefore if you cannot succeed in one place, you can go to the other town. So there's lots of occasions, opportunities that you could do that in the US. So they, rather than suffering, they kind of flee, and they find another state or another place to live. And I can find in the US a lot of songs and stuff, lots of them there. You are a rambler, or you're traveling around countries, and you meet someone in Denver, for example, and you fall in love with one person, and that's why he decided to stay in Denver. This is like a folk songs probably, but there's a lot of songs like that. I think Jan and Sylvia song called Four Strong Winds, for example. That's also about this couple's relationship, which is kind of struggling, and but guys finally left the woman, and so he goes to somewhere far away, to Canada, I think, and so he think about this old love, and he think that he wants to try to write the letter to her that please come to this place, because I kind of settling down. I gotta work here, and so I will send you the fare, which is a train fare, to visit me. But then again, he said, that was like a long time ago, and we had a lot of fights, but we knew that we couldn't be happy in our situation, in one spot. So I have to travel, moving around. And those type of stories in the US have it. I think you want to avoid that type of very restricted social rules or whatever, and rather suffering from those tight binds of rules. They want to just flee to the other town to establish the new life there. Yeah, so I think it is very interesting. I think because sometimes I think human beings are, if there's so many people living in one spot, one country, there's also, of course, there's a certain rules there. That exactly happened in Japan. You have a rules. You have to be quiet in the public. You have to behave, and you have to follow the rules. But in the US, for example, there are relatively more places to go, so there is no such a need to establish that type of rules. So it's rather free. Yeah, it's called free country, right? US boasts of their own free spirits and free countries, freedom, I would say. So yeah, it's kind of very, very interesting. And today, probably societies in Japan are getting probably closer to the US society, that you don't have to follow the rules that much. You could be free to do whatever you want to. However, the country itself are very, very limited, small space there, therefore you cannot do that. So I think there's a lot of people still suffering with those stresses of social norm and social standards or whatever, and you cannot be different in Japan. You have to be the same with other people, and that's the only way that you could maintain this perfect peaceful world there. And of course that causes a lot of the problem. So yeah, it's interesting. I think today's movie, I don't think they produced that type of tearjerkers that much. Also, the fictions and novel, I don't think they produce that type of stories that much today. So, and young people especially, are changing so fast, rapidly evolving to something that you never expected before. For example, they stop marrying and establish a marriage, having kids. Those values and old time are gone. Many people prefer living single for the rest of their lives, and like a solo type of activities. I think they are changing so much, so rapidly, that become a problem for not producing enough babies. For example, young couple, so first of all, they don't get married, but even though if they get married, they don't have children, and so that's going to be a lot of the problem in Japan now and in the future as well.